So we are starting with conflicts and issues causing kidney disorders. 1 in every 10 adults in India suffers from chronic kidney disease, and at any given point, nearly 5 lakh patients are in need of lifelong dialysis or transplant, according to Sanjay K. Agarwal. This is a panel discussion. I would like to invite Dr. Rahi Joshi, Dr. Kwesi, Jasmina, Anu, on stage, please, for the panel discussion. And Dr. Miho Nonami.
Yes, Rob, please come. So we just had a wonderful illustration of the power of sound. And those of you who know about traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, know that the ears are connected to the kidneys. So even if you look at the image of the kidneys, you see they've got the form of an ear. And hearing is the first of our senses that we develop while we are in the womb of the mother. So hearing is very important, and it has to do with kidney issues. Because when we want to belong, we also want to listen to what we are being said by our families, by the group. And this, if it's in our nature, it's okay. If it's against our nature and we listen to something and we obey, then we've got a conflict with belonging. And that can show on the levels of the kidneys. So this panel discussion is about the different disorders that we have got with the kidneys. And we will start with what we call in meta-medicine the kidney collecting tubule conflict. And that has to do with belonging. So, Robert, I would like to share your story when you had an issue in an early age that was connected to the kidneys.
Yes. So I had something called nephrotic syndrome. I was diagnosed at 2.5 years of age, and that caused me to retain fluid on a physical level, and there was no understanding of the reason for that disease, and I suffered with the symptoms until I was 18 years of age, physically. You could say psychologically and emotionally there's an impact that's still running through my life, and it affected many organs, not just my kidneys, and so it's been an interesting journey into mental health, because it's given me some deep insights about the genesis of the illness, why did I have it in the first place, and how it's interfered with my development, and kind of like held me back in some ways. But you could also say in other ways it's brought me here, it's bringing me home, bringing me back to myself.
Can you share what happened?
Yes. So at 2.5 years of age, I was taken by my parents to Edinburgh in Scotland, and they were on a shopping trip, and there was some confusion about who was looking after me, and they left me in the store.
So you were left alone?
I was left alone in the store.
At the age of 2.5 years?
Around 2.5. And now, I only found out through actually working with Richard. I went on originally the very first foundation training in the UK. And at the time I was working as a coach, and I was beginning to see patterns in people's behavior, their belief systems. They were talking about similar symptom patterns. And I phoned Richard up, who was promoting meta-medicine at the time, and I had a life-changing conversation with him. I was on the phone with him for about an hour or more maybe, and I remember coming off the telephone and my legs were shaking. My whole body was responding to what he was telling me. It was the first time that I'd heard anybody communicating something which linked everything together. And my body was just singing, going, yes, this is it. This is what it's all about. So I went on the foundation training with Richard, and he began to do diagnosis with me. And my body was responding to his questions, but I had no conscious understanding or recollection of why I was feeling that way. The words abandonment, isolation sent a shiver through me, but I had no memory. So he tried very hard to help me get to a place, but we couldn't find it. But he said, maybe ask your mum or see what else can come up. So I asked my mother, Mum, when I was around 2 years of age or so, was there any reason why I could have felt abandoned or isolated? And she was like, no, you were loved, you were taken care of, you were cosseted. And I was like, because that was true. My parents were very loving with me, and at the same time, I also knew Richard's inquiry, my body responding to this in a way that there was something there. So I said to her,
Can I just mention something? We were looking at brain CTs. We were just experimenting. We'd never really played with it, had we?
Yeah.
And it was thanks to Dr. Bader. And I was looking at your brain CT, and we were looking at the kidney collecting tubule area. And there were about 13 spots there, 13 rings or something.
And that was later, Richard.
Or was it later?
Yeah, because on the foundation weekend, this was before we went over to Germany. So we went over to Germany and did the diagnostic about a year later. So this was right at the very beginning when you had the information about abandonment isolation, and you got me up in front of everybody, and we were trying to get something. We couldn't get anywhere at that time. But
I think we even have that on video, still.
You might have in video.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay.
And my mum, she goes, no. She just kind of like didn't recall anything at the time. So I said, well, I'll just have a think about it. Maybe you'll remember something. Anyway, about six weeks later, she goes, that metamedicine thingy you've been talking about, could ever being lost have anything to do with it? And I was like, lost? I don't have any memory of being lost. She goes, well, and there was some guilt, yeah, and she started to tell me about the story of being in Edinburgh, and I'm like listening to the story, thinking, I have absolutely no memory of this whatsoever. But then these feelings started coming up of anger, and like kind of betrayal, like really deep feelings. And I was like very surprised, because while she was talking about it, I was beginning to associate slowly back towards the memory. Now, since then, I've done work where I've recovered the memory and I've gone into it and cleared it. I've actually been back to the store where I was lost in Edinburgh and gone in doing muscle testing with my colleague Tremaine and doing EFT. And what was very interesting was that I went back to the store when I was 43 years of age. So this is nearly 40 years after the original incident. And we had to take a train from Glasgow to Edinburgh. And it was like a tube as well, part of it was underground. And as I came out of the tube station and started walking up the stairs, my body collapsed. My legs went from underneath me. It did not want to go back to the place where I had the trauma. So I had it propped up by my girlfriend at the time and Tremaine. They dragged me into the store. We muscle tested to find the exact location it happened, and I started doing clearing work in there, and all sorts of weird sensory changes happened. And then I walked out the store, and there was nothing. I was empty. But that disease lasted for 16 years physically. It made me a very clingy child. It meant I had massive issues with rejection. I had attachment issues with people, a fear of rejection, a whole load of other things. And Richard started a journey with me where he did some therapy with me on an NLP course, which also began a whole level of evolution, which was brilliant work and very much inspired me to become a therapist. And so I have to acknowledge Richard as well for his help and taking me on this journey. And I would say to you, it's never ending. We're not complete because we're evolving. And we are complete because we're evolving. So it doesn't end mental health because there's so many patterns that are in our ancestry, and you know, there's so much potential that we have to explore and unlock, that it's a journey that's never going to end. So thank you. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Robert. So we are dealing with one aspect of the kidneys. I would like you to move a bit so we can illustrate it for everybody. So who in the room here has not had a foundation weekend in Meta Health? Who hasn't had any training in Meta Health here in the room? So everybody, okay, just a few. So we will make it very easy and understandable for each of you so that you can follow it. So we are now dealing with the kidneys. To make it simple, the kidney is the water manager, the fluid manager of our body. And we have got different aspects of the kidneys, and now we are just dealing with that part of the kidneys which is responsible for the resorption of the water. And the water is being resorbed in different parts of the kidneys. And we also need to acknowledge one man who started this methodology by understanding what causes disease, and that is the German Dr. Enrique Hammer. Through his own disease process, he got an understanding why he got tumor of the testicles, because his son passed away, and understanding the biological impact of testicle tumor to be more productive in the context of fertility. He asked all his patients, and everybody had a shock. So that's how he came to this understanding. And he called it the kidney collecting tubule conflict. The Indians are very creative, and they call it KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. So to adapt to the Indians, we call it now KFC. Then you know what it's about. So this is what it's about, and it is one of the most important conflicts that we need to be sure that when it's there, we need to identify it. We have to ask any client or test them if they've got it. Because this one is about to belong. And we human beings, we are born as a premature species. When we are born, we 100% depend on our environment. We can't survive on our own. And later, when we want to belong and we oppress ourselves, we hold back because of approval, then we can get a lot of conflicts. Because we are holding back. If I fully express myself, I'll be abundant. And if we experience some abandonment like Rob just shared it in the early years, and we get back to that root, then depending on our consciousness is how strong the symptoms will be. And any other issue in the body that is being resolved, and when this one, the KFC, is running, the symptoms are being amplified. And that can sometimes be crucial, that the amplification of symptoms is so high, then this can be life-threatening if that is not cleared. And that's why we need a community where people feel and know that they belong. They can express themselves without a fear of rejection. So to build up strong communities in each of the countries where we come from, a Meta Health community, that is our main objective. So that we have a place where we can go and we can say, here is where I feel safe. Here is where I belong. Here is where I can fully express myself without having the fear of rejection. That's very, very important. And this is something more and more people are experiencing problems with the kidneys. Because the feeling of belonging is something where a lot of people are challenged. because they have the fear that when I really express who I am, people won't like me. So, Dr. Miho, you are a pathologist. And I just, in the morning, said that's amazing that you, being a pathologist, have found your way to mental health. So what experience do you have, or how is the incidence of this kidney collecting tubule conflict, renal failure in Japan? What's your experience?
My experience from not I'm talking about I can talk about my experience from my ex-professional as a pathologist, but as the mental health practitioner. And most of my clients have, I'm sure most of my clients have this kidney collecting tubules issue, because many of them, most of them have swollen legs in their daily lives. But I don't think many people, their stress, their emotional conflicts are too large or too serious to be diagnosed as some kidney disease. And I had a number of people who got dialysis treatment in Japan, and who had renal failure. It's about 320,000 people in Japan.
In Japan?
Yes, and but the reason of their renal failure is 40% is diabetes mellitus, and about 30% is chronic glomerularitis. It's not the kidney collecting tubules. So I suppose, among Japanese people, they have, many people have some kind of kidney collecting tubules issues, but not so, the stress is not so large, because in traditional Japanese society, the people lived very closely, and probably they feel they can be supported. So our lives were getting more
Westernized?
Yes, westernized, and our lives were changing. So I suppose the kidney collecting tubules are getting bigger, will get bigger in the future in Japan. But at that time, currently, this issue is not so serious, I suppose. Oh, I'm very sorry, my poor English.
No, wonderful. Thank you very much. So it's very important that we always have to look at the disease processes in the country under the cultural pattern, the cultural conditioning. And as you said, the society in Japan used to be where the families were still close together. And now with modern Western times getting more impact on Japan, this can break up, and then one can predict that the KFC will rise in Japan. So thank you very much. One moment. Jasmina, your background is in former Yugoslavia?
Yes, I got a degree in horticulture, and it has nothing to do with what I'm doing now. It was just official degree. In the last over 20 years, I'm into alternative modalities, different kinds, starting from herbal medicine, going into iridology, holistic iridology, discovering EFT, going through different learning processes, NLP, and so forth. So one of last third of my education journey was in mental health. And now I'm going forward, moving from working at the physical level, more with herbal medicine, going further to the spiritual level. And today I'm mainly working at emotional, mental, and much more and more on the spiritual level.
And what is your experience with the kidney collecting tubule conflict? Also from the spiritual aspect.
Okay. First of all, I would like to say that I work a lot with cancer clients. People that know me know that I run cancer retreat. And one thing that is very important for anyone who has a diagnosis of cancer is exactly that issue. Because once when people are diagnosed with anything that has in collective consciousness perception of fatality, it triggers that existence conflict. I like to call that conflict fish out of the water. When fish is out of the water, it doesn't belong to its natural environment. And people affected by cancer are very volatile with their improvements, regardless of resolving their original conflicts and line of sensitivity and all of that. Because of that collective consciousness perception about fatality, whenever they hear something as a bad news, or conversation between friends, or any comment from the medical profession, they trigger this conflict. And it can be actually fatal at the end of the day, simply because they don't understand what is going on. I currently have a client that something else was in the healing stage, and she went for checkup, and basically she's been told, it's coming back, and the cancer is coming back. And actually it wasn't, it was just a mistake of whoever was examining
It was
her.
the wrong diagnosis.
It was just one diagnosis, and triggering that conflict actually put her back into bed. We know that edema can be formed when something is in healing stage. Actually, it was so much pressing on her brain that she was totally losing the consciousness, and actually no one from medical profession believed that she can heal further, so they put her in all people's home for kind of 24 hours nursing, and with certain spiritual modalities, we help her to come to the stage coming back to her conscious mind so that some work can be done. It is really very, very important issue to be sorted out and to be monitored with anyone who is dealing with anything that has attachment or meaning attached as a fatal condition.
Yes, so thank you very much. So Dr. Wahi, you were just supporting what Yasmina said.
I had a real-to-life experience, whatever Jasmina said. There was a patient of cancer, stomach cancer, cancer of the pylorus, and he had ascites. He was sent to me by Anu. He was 57-year-old patient, and he was in a syndrome probably. He had the stress phase of KCT conflict, and healing was happening of all his organs. It had spread to the liver and his lungs and the peritoneum also. And he came to me and I gave him therapies. He had ascites. The abdominal girth was around 44 inches. And within, say, 3 weeks, his girth came down to 39 inches.
So ascites is when you've got water in around your stomach.
He had water collection in his abdomen, intraperitoneum. And he was going on till 1.5 months. His abdominal girth came down to nearly 37 inches, from 44 to 37 inches.
So what Robert just said is that we need to be in harmony with ourselves, we need to belong ourselves. So Anu, you are a student of the mother tongue of the unconscious, the colors. So with which color is this connected, and what can you say about that?
I think this is connected with the blue color and rejection of the blue color actually and wanting of the blue color. So it's both. The blue color is always there when it's about comfort, it's about, you look at what you're wearing and you look at why people are wearing it always. And it's not just about what you're wearing, it's about what you get drawn to. If you're getting drawn to a certain color or a certain frequency, that frequency is missing somewhere, so you're getting drawn to it. It could be an overcompensation for what you don't have, or it could be that something has got rejected. Now, besides the color, let's look at the word O-D-Ma. O-D means remove and Ma means mother. Removing of the mother, oh, it's like an expression, oh, my mom's not there. And look back at if your mom's not there, what would you want? You would want to be held, comforted, given love, and all that belongs to the blue color. Thank you.
So thank you very much. So it's very important that when you are working with yourself or with clients, always check out if there is an existing active kidney collecting tubule conflict, if there's an existing KFC. And as Robert just said, we have got the longing to belong to us. Because if we think that I can only be in harmony if I belong to this and this group, we are in a state of dependency. And if we belong to ourselves and are connected to ourselves, we are automatically connected to everything. And then we belong. So that's very, very important. So we want to come to another aspect of the kidneys, and that has to do with the adrenals. So Anu, I want you to share about the adrenals. Running in the wrong direction and feeling chronic fatigue.
Crazy, in India, we don't have so much of this going on. So you'll have to take over this. I'm sorry about it, but really I think running in wrong direction, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but if I was to look at it in West, and when I was with Lars in Denmark, I realized this was the running issue completely over there. But for our country, we are told what to do. And we follow the orders very easily. You're told by your parents what to do. We don't think we are in the wrong direction at all.
And that's exactly why I asked you.
We do it dutifully. In fact, if we don't follow what our parents ask us to do, then we do feel that we are moving in a very, very wrong direction. So then maybe this will happen.
Yes, exactly. That's why I asked you. That was fantastic, because the kidneys, if you look at the form of the kidneys, and that is what I always share, when you're working as a therapist and you've got an issue and a client, always look at the image of the affected organ first. It gives you 80% of the information that you need to know. And when you look at the kidneys, you see they have got the form of an ear. And just what Anu said, the Indians are born to obey the parents. Yeah? So they're listening to them. And then they follow where they're being told to go. And when they sense, oh, I want to go in the wrong direction, then they think something is wrong with me. Did I get you right, Anu?
Absolutely.
Yeah? And it's about listening to yourself. Because this is our inner guide. It is telling us, am I going in my right direction? Am I following my true mission in life? And if I don't do it, then this program is pressing on the brake and saying, stop. You're using your energy not for the right thing. Follow your right path. So what do you have for experience here in India, Vahi?
No, as you always say, you have to be authentic. I don't think we are authentic most of the times. And what Anu rightly said, we still have to have experiences of going beyond this.
In fact, if we take the word kidney, and it's like kidney, so we are always a kid in our country, so we never kidney. Yes.
What do you have experience in Japan or in your personal life with this conflict of the adrenals, Dr. Miho?
Adrenal. I had several clients with adrenal issue. One of them had a panic attack, and she really went out. She always stayed home, and she had a very huge conflict, wondering and stress if her marriage had been right. So if she had married a right man or not, and it made her some very serious stress and adrenal issue. Nowadays, it's possible that many people can choose their own way. Thank you. Their own way as they like, but many people have kind of wondering or serious or nervousness if they are choosing their best way, the right path, because they think or mentally, so they lose their contact to their intuition, as you mentioned, you recommended. So I'm sure many people have that issue at this time, at this moment.
Yes, you mentioned something very, very important just right now, that every one of us has to follow his and her own intuition. And when we think that we have to live according to the expectations of other people, we are not going our own way. And then our adrenals are going to affect us. So we are in the last minutes of this panel discussion. And Yasmina, what is your experience as an EFT expert? How often do you diagnose this with your clients?
Not very often. You know that we attract similar frequencies, and I'm very much into my own ways without feeling lost or without any need to obey. So I actually don't attract people like that. I did come across few times, and all those times it was the case with males that were stretched between expectations of their wives or their partners, and they wanted their way, but they couldn't stand for themselves due to other issues that they had. So they've been stretched, and they could not follow their intuition, otherwise they would go into issue with the partner. So for the sake of saving the relationship, they were actually going against their own path, their own will, their own direction. And that was experience that I had few times with male population. Otherwise, I don't really get clients along that line.
So Robert, what is your experience?
Well, my experience of it is that most people have this running at some level. When you use metakinetics, you get a deeper kind of assessment, a greater sensitivity to what's going on in the body. And we've discovered that it's not just moving in the wrong direction, it can be a conflict of decision making. So assessment and not being able to make a choice. It's very much seems to be a part of other conditions such as chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. It seems to be a part of that system. So I found that even with cancers, I found that people have very much, it's like related to their identity. So they find that they're not able to choose for themselves clearly, because they're not in tune with themselves, like Kwesi was saying. They're not in tune with their own intuition, their own inner guidance. They're still dealing with deep conditioning and programming from the outside. So ultimately, the conclusion I come to, or I can say the working conclusion I've come to, is that there is a conflict between the intuition, their inner knowing, and their conditioning. So their mind, their ego mind, is fighting their spiritual mind. And that's the moving in the wrong direction on an inner level. Thank you.
So thank you very much. So it means that you just mentioned the magic word, Wahi, and its authenticity. And Rob just illustrated it with these two entities within oneself where there is a conflict with the ego and the intuition, our unique nature. And that means when we follow our unique nature, we take a risk. We need to let go that we want approval from others. That we want to be the good guy or the good girl because we obey. And we're going in the direction we are being told. So it means when you want to live a life you love and live it powerful in your own life, you need to take a risk. Without a risk, it's not possible. Then you can live a second-hand life till you die, but you will never be fully expressed and not yourself. And that is the huge challenge, because a lot of people into it, I'm running in the wrong direction, but they are afraid of the consequences. So Anu, how is that in India?
Sorry, I wasn't listening.
With the consequences, if you really go for your own direction?
Well, if I go in my own direction, which is what I'm doing right now, and the consequences are that I could have a partner who is very understanding, yet at the same time doesn't understand. So it's very difficult. He understands and gives me liberty and gives me permission to do what I want to do. It's as if I have to ask permission. And I have to be very grateful and to be in gratitude. Thank you so much that you're letting me study. Thank you so much you're letting me pursue my dream. And at the same time, I might feel restricted because I'm still in a cage, but a bigger one. So let me put it like this. Somebody said, you grew up from being a sparrow to being an eagle. But you see, when I grew up from being a sparrow to an eagle, my cage just grew a little bigger. So I still haven't learned to fly out of the cage and move away. So the day I do that, maybe you'll ask me this question and I'll be able to answer you.
So Anu was 100% authentic. Yeah? She was not pretending anything. She just said how her situation is. And that is the huge challenge that every one of us has. Because we were born premature and we are conditioned for approval, to get approval so that we survive. And when we are old enough to leave this cage that Anu just described, yeah, we don't dare it. Yeah? We even lie to ourselves, oh, there is no cage. Oh, we Indians, we don't have this issue.
No, I say this to myself. Now that I've become an eagle, I fly with the cage in my heart. But I know that maybe tomorrow the cage will become so expanded that I won't feel it. Or maybe I'll find a small little tweak there and I'll fly out. But to be very honest, I haven't found it.
There's a metaphor. There's an interesting metaphor about elephants, which is a quite topical thing in India, I think. That when they captivate or hold elephants captive as babies, they chain them. It's a big, heavy chain, and they can't get away. And then they learn they can't get away. They can't get away. And as they grow up, they start to reduce the chain to a rope, and eventually it's a thread. And they only need that small sensory experience of being tugged back. And it's a giant elephant and a tiny little thread that it could pull, and it won't escape. And that's a demonstration of tracks. In mental health, we have something called a track in the brain. This is the conditioning that we're all predisposed to for our cultures, for our families, for our religions, through our education that hold us in patterns of behavior and thinking that restrict our freedom for our own evolution. And one of the things about mental health is it can help us untangle that, make sense of it, and clear it.
So we are completing this session, and then we are having lunch. And before we go, everybody has to make his or her own choices in life. And if you follow your direction, if you do everything to be in harmony with yourself, is your choice. And we, as therapists, as coaches, we can just illustrate what the disease process, what is behind it. We never tell anybody you have to do this and that. We are just illustrating this is the context, this is the disorder on the level of the organ, this is the mindset, and this is the emotion behind it. And you choose what you are going to do out of that. And of course, we encourage everybody that, if possible, fully express your own nature. But be aware, and be aware of the consequences. And make a conscious choice if you feel strong enough to go in that direction. And my own experience as a medical doctor is that I was running in the wrong direction, working in conventional medicine. And it took me so much power that I just vanished and people couldn't get me. Those who know me, they identify that. Yeah? And when I stopped that and said, I'm not going in that direction anymore, I'm taking 100% risk to step out of conventional medicine and follow my passion and really do what I really love. Being in mental health, working with modalities that see the whole person. Yeah? And at the beginning, I was very skeptical. Can I do my living with that? What is my family thinking about that? Yeah? My marriage broke up because of that. Yeah? And I said, okay, I'm going for it because it's about myself. I'm investing everything I have to really live the life that I love and to live it powerful. And it's worth it. On the one side. On the other side, it also means you need to let something go. Without letting something go, it's not working. So that is what you have to remember, that when you fully want to express yourself, you need to be bold in life and you need to take a risk. Or you can have a second-hand life where you're not yourself, which might be boring. And at the end of your life, like Steve Jobs, who was one of the richest people on this planet, he asked himself, all this power, all this wealth, and all this reputation I had as the CEO of Apple, it was not worth it, because I not lived the life I was meant to be here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Can we have a biggest round of applause for wonderful panel discussion?